fuck is McClay? Sweet. Microphone check.
1, 2.
Okay, usually Oompa says action motherfuckers, so...
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can put on the headphones and Mike to get and chime in and shit. Yeah. You're filling in for Oompa. We usually have a third host and Chad's gonna fill in, so...
Yay!
Alright, Bogcast, episode 6. So you could do it to that camera.
Sure.
Sweet.
Bogcast, episode 6.
Sweet, awesome.
All right, action, motherfuckers.
There you go.
Alright, this is episode 6. I'm really excited to have our guest today. I'm joined by my co-host Brian McClay. How you doing, man?
Doing good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm in good.
Starting to get hot out here.
I know, man. Hopefully they'll be turning on the AC soon, so we don't have to...
Well, hopefully we'll go through another cold spell, right? I mean, that's the key.
That's not happening.
I know, but we can wish.
Right now we also got Chad in the house filling in for Oompa, who couldn't make it today, unfortunately. But
Top of the morning to you.
we're always...
It's St. Patty's Day. Come on.
Happy St. Patty's Day, guys.
You know, to be honest with you, on holidays, I'm the least into holidays. I hate holidays. I hate Christmas. I'm the biggest Grinch. I hate my own birthdays. I hate going to birthdays. But I was slightly festive today with the green marker on the slate board, and also drinking some Guinness today. So, cheers.
Cheers.
You drinking anything? All
Not
right.
at the moment.
Welcome to our guest today, Melissa Farley. She's an actress, director. I have filmmaker, adventurist. You work for USA Today. You're manager and network manager and innovator. I'm really excited to actually have you on our podcast today as an early guest member, because I have a million questions for you as far as directing, acting, all these things. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. Let's just can we start with acting? Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna start with probably the most lamest normal question, but how long and what inspired you to get into acting, and how did you get into it?
It's been a long time now, probably about 12 years I've been acting. I loved acting when I was younger, and I got married young to an ex-husband now, and he absolutely forbade it, like wasn't cool with it at all. And then my senior year, I know, he's making a face like, what? Yeah, just not cool with it, which was ironic because he was a rave DJ and constantly surrounded by like half-naked people every weekend of his life, and I was like totally cool with that. But anyway, my senior year in college, I snuck in like an elective, an acting for the camera class. And my professor kind of pulled me aside one day and he was like, you got to do this. Like, you got to give this a shot, you know, legit.
So you just did it as an elective. You weren't like, I want to, okay.
No, and I'm like a planner, so I was very much like, Charles, walk me through this. Like, what do I do? And he was awesome. He hooked me up with some local filmmakers here at the time to start doing shorts, and he hooked me up with my first agent and helped me get my headshots. And so he was really instrumental in helping me get going. And yeah, from there, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Sheffield, but he was a local filmmaker out here for a while before he moved to LA. And he was one of those guys, he would just pick up a camera and shoot every weekend. I mean, every weekend he was working on something, and I had the most fun with him, and he really kind of helped me meet so many people, and he did my first feature film, and he was just really amazing.
So you got a lot of practice with him, because he's just always wanting to get out shooting and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I made like all my mistakes with Chris Sheffield. Like everything I did badly, I did with him first.
Well,
so
where's he at now? What's he doing?
He's in LA. He's doing DP work full time, and you know he's doing really well. He just had his second feature drop, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but I can totally see the poster in my head. But he's doing really well.
Nice.
So yeah,
Very cool. One of the cool things, real quick, is that you said that one of the things that he did was any chance he had, he was out there creating. I think that's so important.
I've just recently realized that's what it's all about, and I feel like I wasted my whole life just holding myself back, not
Yeah.
doing that, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone to do that.
Consistency.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, that's
straight
the
and-
biggest word in my life right now is consistency with everything. Just being consistent and making sure you set the goals and you achieve them. I mean, that's important.
Well,
so.
it's not only that. It's also there's something you get out of creating something.
Mhm.
You know, whether it's acting, art. I mean, it's all art, but acting, painting, drawing, recording music, recording a podcast. You know, whatever it is, there's something you get out of creating that I think feeds the human mind. You know.
Yeah, I also think it does something really important in the sense that when you think about a lot of filmmakers or great artists,
Yeah.
they have a voice or they have something that they're really
Exactly.
recognized for. And you're not going to get to that place unless you're pumping out work and you're
Yes.
finding what that is about yourself, what statement you want to make. And sometimes you have to do 20 mediocre things before you find that thing that you're really good at. And then it's like, oh, wow.
Nobody's perfect right when you start, right? I mean, there's people that are close, but, you know, that's the important thing. I think mistakes, we act like mistakes are bad.
Yeah.
I think mistakes are important as long as you learn from them, right? Because they're the most important things you learn from in anything, you know,
Right.
with us.
You know how many mistakes I've already made on these first 5 episodes? You know, episode 4, the credits were off to the left.
Dude,
And
I
I
don't even notice
export-
the credits at all.
I know,
Like,
no
I'm
one
not even
does.
gonna
That's
watch
why
it.
when I exported it after like 20 hours, I was like, fuck it. I'm not gonna go back
But
and
here's-
straighten them out. Like, but
here's-
I learned like how
Yeah.
not to do
The-
that.
It
the-
probably looked intentional, like just off kilter,
I
weird.
mean, yeah, that's
you
was
know?
intentional.
The important thing about that is, though, now you remember how to do
for
that,
sure,
right?
constantly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The industry I work in, and whenever I'm training somebody how to do what I do, it's they're always so scared they're going to make mistakes because, yeah, certain mistakes can cause big problems. But I always say that any mistake that you make, I've made before, and I've learned from it, and that's, you know, so as long as we learn from it, that's the important.
Well, you
thing.
sound like you should get a recognition award at your job for peer training because I know working in those environments, getting trained by some asshole. And you feel like you're making mistakes, and you know what I mean. You don't want to do that.
But
So, because I used to train at our old job, remember?
mhm.
And one of the most important things was I always wanted to make that person feel like, dude, it's okay if you
Yes.
fuck up. Like,
and
it's not a big deal.
that's a big point.
But I learned from asshole trainers. Like, this guy's a dick. I would
Yeah.
never do this to anybody.
I have
like,
That's also valuable, though.
Yes, it
no, I
learning that
know.
lesson.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's beyond valuable because, listen, when you have a person that acts that way, that's just a complete dick like that, the person really isn't learning the best way he can because they don't want to be around that person. You know what I mean? So if you're cool with that person, if you let them know that it's going to happen, then that person's going to be more genuine, I think. So especially in the field of acting, because I don't do it. So I imagine that those first couple times when you're in front of a camera, it's like crazy. You're worried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was? Do
Constantly.
you remember those moments, like your very first audition and your very first time on set? Like, were you nervous?
That's an interesting question. So my audition, I'm still nervous when I audition.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm not one of those actors that like ever was able to get over that part of it. When I get on set, I don't feel as nervous because I think I've done so much prep work usually, or I feel so like connected or involved with the role that I had somebody explain this in a really interesting way that like when you're nervous or when you're like worried about, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this good? It's not fair to the other actors. It's not fair to the director. It's not fair to anybody else who's showing up because that means you're out of the moment and you're not actually in the place where you're supposed to be. And so once I started thinking about it in those terms, I tried to really stop showing up like from the ego perspective and just being like, okay, here I am. I'm doing what I'm gonna do.
Did that take some of the anxiety off by doing that? Seems like it would.
Yeah, it really did. And what I love about acting too is, you know, I don't consider myself like an extrovert. I don't like really like putting myself out there. But when you get on a set and when you get a role, it's all about, you know, having those moments where you connect with another actor and you listen, you know, you really listen and then you just respond honestly. That's what I've always taught and that's what I've always done as an actor or tried to do as an actor. And so, you know, it's not about performing. It's not about making this big scene. It's about just being in the moment with somebody, you know, and your hope is that you get so lost in that moment that you stop worrying about all the other stuff, you know?
And then on camera, it just looks natural.
Yeah, and you know, and that's it's funny because on indie film, there's stuff that sometimes I feel like you have to worry about that professional sets don't worry about. Like, for example, I'm sweating my ass off right now, and that's like on a normal big production set, you'd have somebody like rushing in and being like, "Oh, she's shiny."
Oh, so she's just shitting on the Bogcast.
No, I'm just saying,
I'm
like-
just playing. I'm just fucking.
Our production value.
Well,
Dawn Rizzi, wipe her face. What the fuck are you doing over there?
But right, like you wouldn't normally have to worry about that on a lot of different things. But in Arizona, most of the projects that I film on, you do. Like
Yeah.
you've got to worry about
Oh
like.
no, I have so many questions just about from all those things that you
Don't
said.
worry, it's not wet from sweat.
I appreciate the specification on that.
Just going back to your audition question, just really quick, I had a question. So you kind of answered it, but are you one of those actors that loves going to auditions or hates going? So you said, because I hate going. I hate
it too.
If I stub my toe on the way there, I'm like, I'm not going to this. I'm not gonna do this.
Making excuses.
But you know how there's certain actors
excuses.
like, I love going.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
I
fuck
wish
you.
I would. I'm
wish
jealous
I was
of
like-
those
I know,
people.
I am jealous of them
yeah, and on particularly, I don't know if I'm throwing myself under a bus here, but like I hate commercial auditions. I
Oh,
absolutely
yeah, those
hate
are
it.
the weirdest,
You know,
yeah.
and it's because it feels so unnatural. Like you go
Yeah.
in for a commercial to paint a wall, and you're like, I love
Yeah.
painting this
Yeah.
wall, and you're just
Cheesy.
like, what is
Yeah.
happening in
Yeah,
my
that is
life?
weird. I've done a bunch
Yeah.
of those. The weirdest thing is that they film you doing weird things, and they're on and that's on camera forever.
Forever,
these
for all
auditions.
time.
I wish there was a
Yeah.
delete like after like auditions they just deleted all. that
See,
stuff, but-
I don't think I could ever be an actor because this is about as far as I can go. I'm cool with watching myself and hearing myself, but I'm the type of person that I always get embarrassed over stuff. So
Mhm.
doing silly stuff.
I was like that too. I mean,
I
before
can't
started
do
doing
that,
it,
man.
but I got over it. It was hard.
I mean, like there's just certain things that I can't do, and I can't get over that ego part of saying it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
I think that's where film is different than commercial work, though. I mean, I haven't had a whole lot of film auditions where I felt that way, and I'm a little different. I feel like than a lot of other actors. I love auditions where they'll let you improv or just kind of go off the cuff. I'm really good at that. It actually takes me a lot more work to get handed a script and go in and read something for an audition cold because I haven't met the director yet. I don't really know what they're looking for. I don't know and so I get in my head about a lot of that stuff. But if they just say like, oh, we're going to do something a little serious, or we want to see this, and then I can just go in and like freeform it for a minute, I'm great at that. So I don't know. It's just kind of something.
That kind of
about
goes
me.
into my question of what your audition process is like. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's better just to, like you said, because I always get in my head too, just worrying about everything. But once you get out of your head and you could just be free,
I
that's
think
probably the easiest way to go about it.
It depends too. I mean, I remember so a couple years ago I played Anne Boleyn in a period piece, and I got a coach for that audition. I worked with him for months before I
Because you really wanted it.
because I really wanted it. Yeah, and it was, it's a period piece. I was going up against this woman who is like known for her Shakespearean acting in the theater community here, and I was like, well, shit, I don't know how this is gonna go. And it was funny because I was actually sitting in the car at the audition. And my coach, I don't know why we didn't talk about this, but I had never done an accent before. And
That's
I'm
the
sitting,
first thing I thought of.
I'm sitting in the car at the audition, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I have to do an accent. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna go for it at this point. Like, what else am I supposed
Right before
to
you
do?
went in?
Right before I
Oh
went
my
in, the accent
God.
part of it, because we worked so hard on owning like the character and like the emotional side of it. And it was, for me, he could tell that I had an unnatural time picking up the script. And so we would go sometimes word by word, repeating it over and over and over and over and over again until it felt like just my words. It didn't feel like somebody handed me something. It was mine. And so it took a long time. It's not for the like impatient.
So how did the audition go?
I got it. I mean,
So,
yeah.
So do you think because of doing that accent last second is paid off? Maybe because you didn't think about it the entire time, like I was kind of what I was saying earlier.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, you kind of decided it doesn't matter. I'm here. I'm just gonna do it. You're not
Yeah.
gonna
What
worry
made you
about
want
it.
this role so bad?
It was really early on in my
Mhm.
career, and she, it was a female Filmmaker, which I thought was really cool. And she does really elaborate sets and
Mhm.
costumes. And I mean, it just felt like
Just a fun project.
such an
and-
amazing experience. And,
Mhm.
you know, unfortunately, we shot in like a warehouse in August in Arizona. And so I actually fainted from heat stroke. And
I
like,
almost did
it
that.
was
I almost
pretty
did that
rough.
last summer on a set. I know
Yeah.
that sucks.
Yeah, but it was still a really amazing experience, and I wanted to see if I could do it. You
Mhm.
know, it was something totally different than what I was used to. Because back in the day when I first started acting, I was like the girl that you book if you want her to like have a breakdown and cry on set, and like, you know, if you want somebody to do the dark stuff and like have a drug addiction, like that was me. I always played all the dark stuff.
I feel like I'm doing that now. I
Yeah.
always play the bad guys or the homeless guy or the drug addict. So.
When you cut your hair, it's all over.
Yeah, I was
It
just
is.
about to say that.
I'm gonna cut my hair at 40 and just go for all the dad roles for sure. Why not? Fuck it.
Yeah,
Well,
might as
You can make a
have
lot.
one.
There's
Yeah.
so many dad roles.
Oh
I'm
my
always
God.
like, God, dad role. I can't do that one. Can't do that
The
one.
other thing is that's kind of interesting about the bad guy stuff is you hear a lot of these like really, you know, well-known actors talking about that they want to play the bad guy
Yeah.
role because it's more.
Oh, it's fun.
Interesting.
Yes, exactly.
It's fun,
Yeah.
but it's also nice to play
Yeah.
like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Being the
I have.
anti-hero now is like the new hit. You know.
Yes.
That's true.
And I think for an actor, like, it was always hip, you know, because, like,
Yeah.
you just always want that juicier, more layered role. And sometimes playing the straight man feels like the most boring
Yeah.
role you can get on a film. So being that villain is really fun. But I think anytime you get, like, stuck in a box and you're only playing one thing over and over and over again, it can get really hard. And so that's where, going back to, like, doing your own shit, you know, writing your own film to show a different side of yourself and get it out there for people, you know, you can kind of take back some of that power a little bit.
I actually started writing
Yeah.
this little 6-part little mini series.
That's awesome.
But I'd like to. That's why I have later on I have a bunch of questions about directing and stuff too, because I actually would like to direct in like a year or two. But right now I just want to absorb and.
It's terrifying.
Oh man, I can't believe it. I want to go into directing, but really quick, I know you teach acting classes.
Yeah.
You teach improv, right?
I'm not right now, but I'm going to pick it back up in probably about 4 more months. But yeah, I used to teach improv.
Did you you've taken acting classes?
Yeah.
Did you graduate
Meisner.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So what's the like how important is it for an actor to take acting classes? Compared to like just saying what you did before where you were going out with that one guy and just shooting and doing it. Like is it like how is it important for an actor to take acting classes? Do you
You
think?
know, I think it's like anything else. I mean, it's a skill set that you want to maintain. You're just adding tools to the tool belt, you know. And so, you know, I'm not one of those people that gets like I am only Meisner, or I only do method. You know, I never have functioned that way. I kind of pick and choose like a buffet style what works for me. But being able to have that to pull from is just it's super helpful when you're on set, especially if you get a challenging role, you know, or you're trying to approach something a little differently. Having all of those skills to fall back on it's a really helpful thing. And I love improv because, you know, everybody thinks again of improv as being like funny, haha, but really that's not what it is. You know, it goes back again to just being honest in the moment.
Yep.
And so having improv as a foundational thing for auditions, for doing film, you know, for lots of different things in life. Plenty of people in the corporate world bring in improv trainers actually to help do team trainings and meetings and stuff like that. So I think that is probably why I love improv so much more than maybe some of the other
Also,
stuff.
if you kind of look at, and again, I'm not in this acting world, so the only thing I can take from it is the stuff that I see, you know, these big actors, right? And if you look at some of the really well-known actors, especially that are critically acclaimed right now, a lot of them come from that improv world, like Jamie Foxx. You know what I mean? Like these comedians who turn into these really critically acclaimed actors.
Yeah.
You know, so if it works, you know, why not try it?
Well, and it's all about, right, like what I love about it too is you think about as you get older, as you become an adult, you get taught to filter so many things. You know, you filter what you say, what you do, how you respond in a situation. And then you think back to like a little kid, and when they're happy, they're really fucking happy. And when they're
Yes.
sad, they let you know they're sad. And like
You can't do
acting
that
is
as an adult.
right, but acting is removing kind of like all that bullshit layer that you've built up as an adult and getting back down to responding to those
Yes.
instincts that you have, you know, and it's hard work, you know, and it makes people really uncomfortable sometimes. And,
Yeah, it
you
even
know,
makes people. That's the other thing. Like I get really embarrassed and uncomfortable even if I'm watching somebody be uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh God,
So,
yeah. When you're like this.
yes,
you're
you're just like, oh my God.
this guy.
And it's not that I'm embarrassed at because of what I'm embarrassed with because of what they're doing, but like I just couldn't see myself doing it. You know what I mean? I don't think they're idiots. You know?
I'm
You know
not
what's funny
gonna
is
lie.
when you see that though, you never say anything to the guy. You just
No,
watch it.
no,
You
of
could
course
have-
not.
Like, hey, dude, you could stop doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
But improv shows are painful. Like even
Yes.
for a teacher, like when because I used to do monthly shows where I'd have them go up and do a thing, you know, once a month, and it was always like, ugh,
Yeah.
okay.
I couldn't do that.
But it's part of the process, you
I
know.
swear to God, I couldn't do that.
So do you have to be honest with them and tell them like, hey, that was kind of shitty.
You know, it's one of those things where I would kind of acknowledge, okay, we had a rough night. You know, let's talk about why. What do you think happened? Because usually there was something specific to cause the crappiness that
Yeah.
ensued for an hour, you know. And so again, it goes back to just talking about, okay, what can we learn from this so we don't do it again, you know. And I think that's the thing too. It's like I never wanted to make them feel bad to the point where they didn't want to do it again, because it takes so much bravery just to get up there and do it, you know. And like they should feel really proud anytime they do that.
Yeah.
But you know, being able to step back and then see, oh, I was trying to like basically stand out and just be awesome, because that's the other thing. Improv is a team sport, you
Yeah.
know. It's not like a solo thing where you really want one person to shine. It's a very giving craft. And so a lot of times what happens is people would start to get a little competitive or try to be like the superstar, and then it would just kind of all fall apart. So
Yeah. So what kind of things do you learn as an acting teacher? Is there any lessons or things you've learned from your students as being a teacher that you've incorporated into your acting skills?
yeah, I mean, I think when I first started teaching, I was really laid back about everything because I just wanted everything to be super organic, and I just didn't want to push anything or force anything. And then I started realizing I have to take the time to really evaluate who's showing up at my class, what they need from me, how I can best show up for them, and change things depending on how the night goes. And so one of the things I really learned was coming in with a plan, but being prepared to just say fuck it and throw it out the window. And that has helped me so much in life as a manager, as, you know, just a person in general, you know, showing up, knowing that I can do this, but also this might go in a whole other direction, and I just need to
And it's okay.
be okay with that. Yeah.
I think that's something that most, like you were talking about with kids, how kids don't have that filter, and then we get to like teenagers and we start learning how we use that filter, and then you know in our 20s and 30s we have that filter. It's really strong, but as we get a little bit older, and some people get it sooner, you realize that that's really not how life works.
Yeah.
You know, and
You know what else helps with that?
what?
Mushrooms.
He's exactly right. And, yeah,
That's another
exactly right.
podcast, though.
Yeah,
Leave
that's
it to you to go
another
straight to the
podcast.
psychedelics.
Right.
That's all right.
Yeah. Well, that'll be episode 9.
Well, I think that's it's the same thing. It's very important to realize that, you know, the human psyche and us as humans, how we do things, and you know, at certain ages, most of us follow like a path, the same type of path. But
you're
it's
just
not
conditioned to
our own
everything around you that you're going on. You get stuck in that condition.
Yes.
Is what it is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're a product of your neighborhood, your environment, your work, and all this bullshit. And sometimes it's hard to.
But I think
break
as you
away
get
from
older
that.
and you have more experiences, you realize that, man, what a waste that was, right? And I think it's if acting or if whatever it is helps fuel that in a good way, I'm all for it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, and like you were saying, improv is good not just for actors, you know, it's not just for comedians, or it's good for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
They do it in a professional level. They have people come in and do team building things with improv. And there's a reason for it, and maybe that's part of the reason.
Do you ever have students that take it for that, like more like self-help reasons than to become an actor? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I just did, one of my friends teaches at a nursing school, and so I just did a class specifically structured for that
Shit.
reason.
Can you close that window?
Um,
I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
totally fucking forgot. I just heard some cars going by. I'm like, God damn it.
I don't hear.
I
I'm
was-
trying to make every podcast better.
I
especially
was
the
enjoying
audio.
the breeze.
I
sorry
know.
about
You
that.
should just leave it
Oh,
open.
okay.
Yeah, just leave it open.
All right. Fuck
Are you
it.
sure?
Yeah.
Sorry, Chad. Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, sorry.
For all those
Okay.
people out there that can't stand that,
So if you're
get
listening to
used
the-
to it.
All right. I'm an audio guy, so.
Oh, sorry. That's probably is killing you,
no,
isn't
it's
it?
fine. I don't give a
Chad,
shit.
just close the window. Close the window, Chad.
No.
What do you want from
There's
me?
No.
There's the
No.
video version, the audio version. I don't think anyone's listening to the
I'll be
audio
honest, I
version
can't hear
anyway.
anything on this end.
Yeah, I
Well,
can't hear anything
nothing
either. Nothing
that's
that's
distracting.
crazy.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm really sorry about that. Anyway,
Eh.
what were you saying?
I'm rolling with it. What was I saying?
Fuck.
Oh, the nursing school. Yeah, so I did a class specifically about how to build, how to use improv to build self-confidence. And I was actually approaching it from a standpoint of like people that a lot of times want to kind of get it to their next level in the career, that like sometimes they're nervous to go to networking events or even reach out to someone that's higher up than them to kind of get some insight. And so it's kind of building those confidence skills and learning how to open up. So that was actually a really interesting. I really enjoyed that class. I wouldn't mind doing more kind of corporate style
Yeah.
things, but I'm kind of at the very beginning stages of that. So
Yeah, I really need to continue acting classes. I started a bunch of programs and kind of stopped, but the thing for me, I don't know what it is, but when I'm on set and filming, it could be any type of commercial or short film or film or whatever. I'm having fun. I don't
Yeah.
get nervous. There's a little bit of anxiety, you know what I mean? But I get nervous when I go on auditions, but I get more nervous for some reason going to acting classes than anything.
because you know you're gonna get torn apart.
and
Like you
I
know
would
that's why you're
sweat my
there.
ass off. Like I would sit there and be like, please don't fucking pick me. Like that whole thing. And the whole time I could not wait to go. Like I just do not have fun during classes. I don't know what it is. I would go just to try to make myself just a better, not even a better actor, like a better person, just to get out of my shell. And like I need to do this just to like put myself in weird situations and
Yeah.
stuff. And I don't know what it is. I got to get over it.
See, but I get that, and that's why my improv class, I wanted it to be super laid back because I knew people were like you and were like me and didn't like that
Yeah.
kind of environment, and so I wanted it to be more of a like, let's just all help each other and let's just kind of have fun as we do it, and let's just get better by doing it and being honest with our conversations about what's happening, as opposed to somebody, being that like kind of dictator in the front of class and being like, you really suck at this and
Yeah,
let's
it's not
talk
like that
about
it was
it.
Because then you just ruin any learning experience they're gonna have. Because
Well,
now
that
they're
wasn't
not
really
gonna wanna
happening. I
do
wasn't
it.
really getting like my asshole torn or anything. Like,
No.
But it was just I even had friends in the class and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, I definitely need to start going back and doing those classes. And
Yeah,
stuff.
and I would say
I had fun with improv though.
try them. Just try different classes too and see what feels good to you. I don't like the idea of wasting my time. Like that's as I get older, like
Oh,
time.
that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's not a good fit for you, or if it's just not something you're
Yeah.
getting anything out of, and like it's just like that nervousness or that anxiety weighs out more than what you're learning, then move on to another
Yeah, you're
class.
right.
I think that that whole time aspect is something that again, getting older, we learned that there's a resource that's so valuable that we will never, ever be able to get back, and that's that time. Like, how important is that time? But real quick, for the people who don't really, that are looking into getting into the acting here in the Valley and stuff, where are some of the places? You talked about the school, the Meisner School, is that what it is? Is that here in the Valley?
Yeah, it's the Artist Box by Kevin Phipps, and he's fantastic. He's got a couple of teachers too, and they're doing a couple different programs now in addition to Meisner. They actually have a drama improv class that this guy Daniel's teaching that's pretty good.
I know Daniel.
Yeah, Deering Studio is another one that I've trained at in the past, and they're really great with kids. So like if you've got kids or you're in your teens, I really love Deering for that age range. And then there's quite a few, and I think again it just goes back to what you want out of it. Yeah.
Were you at Kevin's film the other night?
Mhm.
You were?
I actually
Okay.
saw you.
you saw
You were
me?
sitting kind of across from
I saw
me.
your scene.
Yeah, my one liner.
That was cool.
I loved it.
That
I know.
was cool.
That was the easiest acting gig I've ever had.
Oh really?
That's one of those things though, right? Like Kevin and I are buddies, and so he was like, "Hey, can you come show up on this day?" And it's like, "Sure." Like I'll do whatever.
I was
you
in
know?
the way background. I was like a soldier, but
So something really
Okay.
funny. This is I'm always catching synchronicity, like these little things that happen. Just timing is perfect. But last night. I'm really into old pre-code movies, and then even like the 50s and stuff. And
Yeah.
I really like documentaries about that time. And there was a documentary I was watching last night about the making of Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the cool things that they were talking about is they wasted so much money on that film. And one of the reasons they wasted so much money is because they couldn't film scenes with a lot of the actors just because Elizabeth Taylor basically almost died on set. So these actors are in the middle of France or Rome doing nothing for like months and months. So there was a Daryl Zanuck, I think is his name. He was the owner. He was the guy that created 20th Century Fox. He was doing. There's a really famous war movie he was doing at the time, and the actors that were in that movie, just because they were so bored, they were friends with him. He called them up, and was like, "Hey, do you just want to come down and do a couple like one scene,
Yeah.
2 scene stuff?" And they talked about how that made it so that they could just be sane because they were going crazy. And at that point, when you're an actor or when you're an artist or when you're a musician, if you're not getting that out, that creating out there, you kind of go crazy. So I think I'm all for that. It doesn't matter how big the role is or
for sure.
And then you're helping somebody that you know and you enjoy. Why not?
No, it was perfectly timed too, because I have a day job, and sometimes that day job gets a lot more demanding than I would like it to. And so, yeah, when somebody reaches out to me and I can just spend 4 hours on a set, it's a nice little thing. And also, I had never filmed on a project with an Alexa before, and so I was really curious to watch the DP and like see how he worked with that camera. And it was like, so again, I got like 2 different things out of it.
Oh yeah.
So
you were watching him direct and the camera and
Yeah.
how to take in the information to learn and stuff.
Yeah. Because I remember like the first time I shot with a Red camera, I was super excited.
Is that what you shot your film with?
No. Oh no. No. No, we used a Sony. But it like as an actor, I kind of thought that I would want to move into learning how to shoot and learning more about cameras, and I don't. Like that was something that I discovered. Like I just don't. I don't have the mind for it, and or the patience for it. But I think sometimes those things that are really high quality, and seeing how they handle that equipment and what's different about it, I still enjoy.
Well, if
that
you're
part of it.
directing, I mean, some of my favorite filmmakers are the ones that write, direct, and shoot the camera stuff. But as a director, you don't have to know how to run the camera. You just kind of have to know what the shot looks like and leave it up to the camera guy to figure out the lens and all the lighting and all that. I think it was Quentin Tarantino I heard say once that like a good director is just someone who's really good at hiring the best people at everyone in the department and just letting them know what you want and hope you know what I mean. They should be able to come through and stuff, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had respect for people that do everything, like I really kind of grew up loving Robert Rodriguez and then the Duplass brothers.
My God, we were talking about him on the last, we had Matthew Robinson from the Film Bar in a previous podcast, and we were talking about that.
Yeah, and so I've always had like sort of an affinity for it, but my husband, it would just be silly. Like my husband is an Emmy Award winning DP. Like, he's great at what he does. The funny thing is, so my first feature, that's almost done now officially. He shot it, and I directed it. But he's so used to doing documentaries, and he's so used to shooting kind of for news, which is different, totally different than film. And so that was a learning experience for me, was learning how to communicate what I actually wanted, so he could change what he was doing to capture that. And it was just...
Was that hard being at your husband?
Yeah.
So,
it was hard.
I could not imagine that.
Well, because it was one of those
I don't know if
things,
it would be easier or harder. Like
I thought it was harder because we'd have a discussion, or things would get like heated, and I could tell people were kind of like, "Oh, is this a husband and wife like going at each other?" It was really frustrating to me. Or sometimes, because he doesn't come from film, he wouldn't really know the protocol of how you talk to a director or like what like decisions the director gets to make, because he's kind of used to being a one-man band. So he would just like say something, and I'd like give him the death stare and be like, "You are directing my movie, like stop it," then he'd like wouldn't really understand what did I just do? Like, why we're on the same team, we all want the best thing, why can't I just say it? And it's like, that's my job.
Yeah.
So
he was just trying to help, or like just
Yeah.
didn't know his lane or boundaries and stuff like that. So
And it
sometimes-
felt like a life point for me to sort of be like, okay, do I need to just say fuck it and be like, you know what, he's right. He's really good at what he does. I'm really good at what I do. Does it matter that we keep this set protocol, and
Yeah.
like everybody talk to each other this certain way, or should we just do what works for us? Or do I want to like educate him and be like, hey, this is how it should go?
and you're finding this out as you're shooting.
And that's
So-
really
Yeah.
interesting because it seems like sometimes when those people, those young directors that maybe don't know the protocol and they do things different, it just becomes like this amazing thing. And sometimes not knowing the protocol, you learn these new ways of doing things. And
Yeah.
there isn't always it's kind of like setting yourself in that box. Like, is there a protocol for everything? Do you have to do it this way every time? And sometimes maybe not following protocol will create, magic. So that was kind of one of my questions is it sometimes you were talking about, going to these classes and learning how to be an actor. Sometimes the best actors, maybe don't do that and just figure out really good ways of doing things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it's obvious there were people that never knew what method acting was back in the, the 30s and the 20s. You can tell, and the first people who started that method acting thing, that wasn't part of the protocol. And
Right.
now it's like, hey, that's a good
it's
way
just
of doing things.
Evolved from
Exactly.
generation to generation, from different parts of the world, and now you can it's kind of like UFC, like you take like different kinds of fighting and bring it all together. There's all these different kind of acting methods that you can take and have at your tool belt. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yep.
and then like she was saying, you get in these acting classes and then you're just fucking money.
Well, and there's a lot of different ways to learn now too. I mean, I love. I know it sounds cheesy, but master classes.
Yes.
Oh god, I actually want to
Yes.
start getting into
Love.
those.
I'm obsessed.
You know what?
I love
we
them.
should go in on like because
Do it.
like $180 or something.
Yeah, just get
Like we could
get
get
an
a few people
annual
on
and
it
share.
share it, and then we could all watch it.
I'm sure their company's like hating me right now
You're
for being
God,
like,
we'll-
yeah, go
we'll-
for it.
we'll edit this
they're,
out.
They're amazing though. Like the Ron Howard one is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie. It's awesome.
I'm gonna edit this part out. Just kidding. I say that every episode.
It's really here's another thing of synchronicity. Just this morning, I was watching a little clip from Masterclass from Timbaland, the producer,
Oh yeah, it's
talking about how he records. And the funny thing about that
I
is
love those.
he was saying the exact thing I just said, that there isn't always a way to do things great.
You mean you're stealing what he said?
Basically, I'm good at that. I'm borrowing.
He said what I
Always
said.
steal
What?
from the
No.
best, yeah.
You saw that?
Yes.
I can't believe he's still alive though. I kind of forgot that guy existed.
Yeah,
The,
right?
But I remember him.
Yeah.
You saw the Ron Howard one though?
Oh, I saw bits and pieces of it.
Me too. Yeah, that one looks awesome.
Which he's so like he's on another fucking level.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but he also has that acting thing,
He
right?
does, man. He's
Yeah.
something special. Like I don't like a lot of his movies, but goddamn, he's good.
I don't even do music scores, and I want to see the Hans Zimmer one. Like,
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
guy. That would be awesome to see that.
Scorsese did one, I think, as well.
Yeah, but there's not just for film. There's like
It's for everything.
for all kinds of
It's-
stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of
That's-
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you don't do the master classes, I would just say, even if there's like a film you really like or you're interested in or you want to learn about how they did something, Google it and you can find. I mean,
Behind the scenes
Oh, the
stuff.
behind the scenes?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I did that for. I actually didn't like the movie that much, but I was curious how they shot Ready Player One, and I was at this
The behind the
conference.
scenes of that are amazing.
Yeah, and Steven Spielberg is like directing and building things in
In
virtual
VR,
reality, and like my mind was just like,
I fucking love that, dude.
What?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Did you see that shit?
I haven't seen it yet, but Spielberg, man.
Yeah.
He's just minus the whole Netflix debacle.
I was
Yeah.
just about to
we
say,
talked about
yeah.
that.
yeah, I know.
We talked about that.
Yeah, no,
I know.
Other than that, I respect the shit out of that.
Yeah.
I think that's just he's got a lot behind that maybe pad his pocket, right?
Yeah.
So he's gonna lose a
I
ton
get
of
that.
money and listen, and I understand for those who don't know what we're talking about, we've talked about it before. There's a Spielberg, and who's the other guy that is totally against the
Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas. They're really against the Netflix thing because it takes away the whole experience of going to the theater and going to the movies. And
they're purists,
They're purists,
basically.
yes,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but you have to look at the other part of it. Next, Netflix is giving so many people opportunities that would have never had it with a big studio, budget behind
Like Roma.
them.
Roma is amazing. Have you seen
Yes,
Roma?
I haven't seen Roma yet,
That
but
movie's so good.
there's I mean,
That director would have never had the opportunities like Steven Spielberg. You know what I mean?
Well,
I know
here's
he
a-
did Gravity and things like that, but
here's
not
a-
with the film Roma.
here's a perfect example. Have you guys seen that that little preview of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air thing?
No, I didn't see that. I know what you're talking about.
It is fucking amazing.
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't. Like,
Well, you look at it differently, probably.
a little bit.
So I look at it.
Why? Because he's young.
So let me explain how I look at
That's
it.
what it is. Age discrimination.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I look at it as somebody who, growing up, I remember every day getting out of like junior high and going over to my friend's house, and we would, get to his house. We would, smoke a joint, throw on TV, and it was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Saved by the Bell, Married with Children.
You
Right?
know I remember these, right?
Right? Yeah, I know you do.
They were
So
still going
those
on.
were such big parts of my life, and then to have this guy make this, I mean, it's not totally new, but it's a fresh take on something that it just blows you away on how people can look at things differently. And here's the best part about it to me. The best part about it to me isn't the how he did it and how he shot it. It's the fact that he was only planning on doing this. He took 6 months to do this little fake trailer.
Yep.
People enjoyed it so much that now it's turning into he's going to try and do a full feature on it. So here's a perfect example of that thing with George Lucas and Spielberg, where this guy maybe never had the opportunity to make a feature film like that this early in his career, and now he does because he released it on Twitter and a bunch of people saw it and that type of stuff.
But that's also the power of fandom, not just the platform,
You're right.
too. I
You're
mean,
right.
shows have been literally saved because of public outcry.
Yes.
They have influenced in other areas of film, or even manga is a huge part of this too. Like, they influence how the show develops or what comes out of it, what characters come out of it. I mean, fandom has become such a force in what's being created, and so I think that's a really big part of it. My concern for Netflix, though, is like at some point they're going to have to start really thinking about what they're investing in, because I have tried to get into so many shows now on Netflix, and I watch it and it's great high quality production, but like, man, the story's shit,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah,
the
it
writing
usually
is
does
just
this.
bad.
Sat-
Yeah.
So it's saturated.
It's just like,
I feel like
okay,
that too.
guys, you got to figure this out, because, I agree. I think it's amazing that so many of these like filmmakers are getting opportunities that they normally wouldn't, but let's put that money where it should actually
Yeah.
go.
Chad, what are your feelings on that? I want to hear what you.
Well, it's just a general like the oversaturated Netflix market.
No.
Or-
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air thing.
Oh well, it's one of those things. It's like everything now is trying to go serious, like a level of seriousness. They're trying to take these like cheesy ideas.
Yes.
I mean, let's face it. Back in the '90s when that first started, airing, even Saved by the Bell.
I saw the Zach Morris.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the Zach Morris's trash.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
seen
yeah,
Those are amazing.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, they're always trying to
Have you
take
seen those?
something
I have.
and flip it. and
Yes.
make it this new,
Yeah.
this dark retro thing.
Yeah.
and it's weird. It's
It is weird, but I think that will always be like there'll always be trends.
Well, I mean, look at Batman.
Yes.
For example, like look how cheesy that was.
Yeah.
Look what Christopher Nolan did to it.
You're
Yeah.
right.
And it's like holy shit.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
really
but now
pisses
everyone's
me
trying
off.
to copy his style, and it's not working out. And it comes
Exactly.
out
It
cheesy.
never will.
Like,
It
It
just
never
all
will.
the Batman for Superman shit now, and
Yeah.
But anyway, I still have a million questions about directing. If that's cool.
Well, no, that's kind of
That's
what I
okay.
was getting into because we have two directors here, right?
Oh, I know.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I wanted to ask him, what his feelings were.
Director.
And
Quote, unquote.
Melissa kind of gave her feelings on it too. So
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. I forgot about that. I forgot he was a director. No, I
Yeah,
forgot about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, you'll see here in a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll get this will all come into place in about an hour and a half.
Full circle.
Anyway, how hard is it to keep your composure and focus while directing without like really just wanting to go off on somebody? Because for me personally, I want to direct, but I feel like I would just get really angry, not necessarily on a person, but like, is it hard to like really just to maintain? You know what I mean? Just not get.
Yeah, it's funny because I never got that way towards another person, crew, or cast. But my biggest enemy, and I think I'm pretty sure I did lose my shit one day, to be honest with you, was audio issues. It was a day we were filming outside, and it was like, you thought we had a quiet neighborhood to film in, and suddenly Every dog was barking, every neighbor was using a saw, every plane overhead was coming every 15 seconds.
That
Like
always happens.
any possible sound that could get made was getting made, and I just like could not get the shot. Some lady like walked by and was like, enchiladas, like selling enchiladas for sale. Like, where did she come from? You know, it was just like,
She's never even been in my
I
neighborhood.
seriously. A drug deal went down across the street. I'm not kidding. Like it all happened within like the span of this 2 hours that we had to get this shot done. And I just couldn't, like, I'm pretty sure the last thing I said that after we took a break, I was like, hold for every goddamn sound on earth. Like,
Yeah.
I just was like, I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore.
Because
So,
I forgot who said it was a famous director, but he also mentioned that directing was like, while you're directing, it's constant chaos, and the key to it is not letting anyone else know that there's anything chaotic
Yeah.
ever going on. To always make it seem like that you have it in control. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I don't know. I forgot who said that, but it seemed like an important.
Well, I'll say this. I was not overly ambitious for, I mean, I know it was a feature, but I really felt like I was smart and strategic about what I picked because it was a simple script. It had very few locations. It had a small cast. It was something that I could do, knew that I could do with a small budget and a small crew. So I was very confident about the scope of the project for my first one. And I also felt really good about how much I prepared and planned for the day of. Like, I felt really solid about my shot lists every
so
day.
you did a good pre-production.
Yeah, and that's really important, you know. And the stuff that kind of causes the chaos is just the things you can't plan for.
Mhm.
You know, it's stuff that you can't really predict happening in the day. You know, the one of our biggest issues was just having a sound guy that was great, but would show up if he wanted to and didn't if he
Mhm.
didn't, you know? And so then it was like, all right, gotta pull poor Anne, who's never had to do boom in her life, to like stand until she's shaking, you know? And it's like, tis the life. I don't know. So yeah, I think that was all a big part of it, was just kind of figuring out how to make decisions quickly and effectively when stuff happened that you couldn't predict, you
Mhm.
know?
Did you ever have to like make? There's a lot of decisions you have to make that kind of sacrifices the shot. Even you're like, oh man, like with the lighting, you know what I mean? Like,
We did a lot of sacrificing for the
I mean, sure, that's
lighting.
what I'm sure. Like, I'm sure, like that's a lot of filmmaking when you're directing, right? It's
Yeah.
just making you want this shot, but sometimes you just can't get it because of certain elements and certain things. And
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we did a lot of natural lighting in the film just because, one, we didn't want to. Lighting can really slow you down, you know, if you take a long time to light the scene. And so it was a conscious choice that we made for that reason, and also just budgetary reasons. And so that was actually a problem for me a lot because the test footage that another director had done before I took this project over was really dark, and I didn't think it fit the film at all. And so every time my husband would show me kind of the playbacks, I'd be like, oh, am I doing the same thing that I knew that I didn't want, you know? And so it was finding that compromise of, it's not going to be this bright, you know, snappy thing because we just don't have the lights for that, Melissa, but I can give you this. And,
yeah,
you
so
know,
that kind of answers one of my questions, but maybe you can go into a little bit more. Like, why was it this script that you got into as to direct your first feature? And so you said you took the project over.
so, well, it was Kevin, actually. It was Kevin
Oh.
Phipps that was going to do it. And then I don't know if he had something else come up or like what happened, but he couldn't anymore. And he actually told the writer, like, why don't you talk to Melissa? Because I know she's been wanting to, you know, get a little bit more experience under her belt. And, you know, like I said, I read the script. I thought it was a super sweet story. I thought I could do something really nice with it and give him a win, you know, because some of his stuff hadn't like gone, I think, as well as he wanted it to go. And I felt like I could really deliver something that he could be proud of. But it was simple enough that I didn't feel terrified by it, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was still terrified, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I don't know
No,
if I
it wasn't
can
a
do
super
this.
overly ambitious script to shoot. It wasn't a sci-fi.
No.
You know what I mean? I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like you
yeah.
felt confident in like, I
Yeah.
could actually get these locations. I could.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a buddy comedy, basically. You know, it's a really sweet story about a girl that gets kicked out of her boyfriend's house and he wants her moved out in 24 hours. And basically, like, the last person she ever thought would be there for her ends up being the one that kind of gets her through this rough part of her life. And it sort of gets her thinking about everything, every relationship she's had, every choice she's made. You know, it's kind of what we've been talking about today of like, okay, what really matters. You know, it's a sweet story.
Is it out yet?
No, I think I'm going to be done in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
So,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
And then
So-
maybe like a sorry.
Yeah. So how are you going to put it out? Do you have plans on how you're going to do that?
Well, what I want to do is by out, I guess I should say, I want to show it to a lot of people and get some feedback on it, because just because I think it's done doesn't mean that it's really done. And that's what I feel like it's happened a lot in Arizona is people are like, we're done, I'm going to send it out everywhere. And it's like, well, maybe if you had gotten a few
Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on how that goes, you know, once we start showing it to cast and crew, and then, like I said, a couple folks to get some specific feedback, yeah, then we're gonna try for a festival run. But it honestly, it turned out a really odd length, and I have still kind of tortured myself about it, because part of me was like, well, do I force fit something in to make it longer? Do I take something out that I think I really need to make it shorter? And then I was like, screw it, the world has a way of just making things work if it's supposed to work. So
Yeah,
you know.
I appreciate that idea that sometimes if it's just not exactly the way that other things are, doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
So maybe that would help it. Maybe, you never know.
I mean, I used to help run a film festival, and so I know how specific they get when programming content. So that's why I am a little concerned. But I also feel like, again, from my experience, if they really like it, they'll find a way to
Yes.
program around it.
Yes.
So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. What was one of the most important lessons you learned from directing this film that maybe had a positive effect on it?
We kind of touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah.
it really kind of hit home for me with this, and that was I really did hire people that I trusted, and yet I still found myself kind of, I wouldn't say micromanaging, but I worried a lot about stuff that I probably shouldn't have spent time or energy worrying about, and just trusted that they were doing their thing and doing it well, because I really, as a director, probably because of my background and where I come from, I really pride myself on performances and working with my actors. And I really didn't have the time that I would have liked to have, you know, kind of deepening some of those places. And so I feel like I learned that a pretty solid lesson from
most
that.
importantly is to make sure you are really spending time with the actors and just trusting your crew.
Yeah.
Instead
For me.
because I feel like I would be like that too, just so worried about even the crew doing their stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I
maybe-
imagine
that makes a lot of sense though.
I imagine it's also like this is your baby. I mean, you know what I mean? This is anything that you create that you're putting, you know, that time and love into. It's your baby. It's
Yeah.
It's hard to hand anything of any piece of that over to somebody else.
Right.
And if that you learn from that, then that's great. If it's, you know, your first feature that you've directed, then you know it's not gonna be a messed up in the future. You're not gonna learn that later.
That was the other thing too, like, and I've heard everybody say this, which is why I don't feel bad about it, you know, but there's certain mistakes that I don't know, maybe you feel differently, but like you don't know you're making them until you watch the film, and then you're like, oh, well, I should have done that differently. But then it's like, I wouldn't have, even if I had 40 extra minutes to stand there on the set, I don't think I would have thought about it that way until I saw it, you know, all put together. And so I had a lot of those moments too. Not a lot, but a decent enough amount to where I was like, okay, I really need to step back and think about things a little bit cohesively, you know, long term, how it's all going to fit together so that I know I'm making the right choices in the moment. So that was a big lesson for me too with this film. But honestly, the way I approached it, even the way my husband approached it, like, this was film school for us, you know,
Oh,
like, we didn't go to film school. So for us, this was all just like, can we do it? What can we do? What are we good at? What are we not so good at? What do we want to, you know, it was all kind of a big experiment laboratory session for us. And so I think that took a lot of pressure off, because we didn't think we were going to come out right out the bat with this like amazing feature that was going to be award winning. We thought we can do a really good job, and we can also learn a whole lot and do something really solid with this. But we definitely had specific things we wanted out of the experience. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I'm really excited to see it. I had a little
Thanks.
cameo in it.
Yeah, you
the
did.
Pizza delivery driver. I brought in that stupid little Beer belly.
You were
Remember?
perfect. Yeah, no, that was great.
But right on. Do you have any other projects or anything you got coming up, or
Well,
acting, directing, or anything else going on? Or
yeah. So I have a film that I actually was like a lead in quite a few years ago called Grief. Is just now coming out and going to start its festival run this year, and so that's interesting to
wasn't
see.
there a premiere for that a little bit ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I went to that.
I think I have a few other friends in that film.
It
I
was.
think.
I thought that was going to be like the film that would launch my career, but
I was
it's
going to
like
ask how weird that is that it's taken that amount of time to come out. Is
weird.
That,
It's
yeah.
weird because I thought they were gonna take maybe 6 months to a year to finish it, and at that point I was still younger and single, and I thought I'm gonna go to LA with this film, and I'm gonna ride this wave, and it's gonna be amazing. And now I'm in a totally different place in my life, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting how that works.
Yeah.
Life doesn't wait for us.
No. Yeah.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
What was the holdup for it? The financing and stuff
Yeah,
like that, or?
and I think that they just couldn't really get an editor that could make sense of all of it. Truthfully, and Kevin knows I feel this way, so I don't feel bad saying it. Like, there was so much footage, and it was so complex that it should have been a series where each character kind of had an episode. What was it? The Netflix series that did a great job of that, The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh yeah.
It would have been a lot better set up like that, because for a feature film, it was just so difficult to tie everything together.
Too
and
many
really,
characters.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's heavy. It is
this Kevin's
heavy
film?
as fuck. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is so heavy, and so it feels like you're just getting punched in the stomach, and it's long, it's still, I think it's just under 3 hours now with the final cut that they have. It's, I don't know, I think that it's going to be a really impressive piece of work still, and I'm excited to see what people, how they receive it. But yeah, I just think that they didn't quite know what to do with it once they had it all in the can,
That's pretty exciting. I didn't know you were the lead in that. That's awesome.
I'm one of them. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not giving anything away. Basically, a central character commits suicide, and then it's all about how each of us kind of deals with that suicide. And it's kind of the different stages of grief. We all kind of have our stage that we process, and yeah, it was really interesting and a really cool experience. So
Damn, Kevin's got 2 films dropping at the same time.
yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah, pretty much.
That's cool.
He started pumping them out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Phoenix and Arizona film community? What are its positives and what are its negatives?
Oh boy. I've been a little bit removed from it, honestly, and that was an intentional choice. Because
What do you mean by that?
I pulled back a lot
Like from
it.
acting gigs?
From acting and being involved in the community, because I kind of got a little bit of a reputation of being like a bitch and difficult to work
Really?
with, a little bit, but I didn't feel like it was fair, because a lot of the issues that I had were really legitimate things to be concerned about. And also it gets really tiring when, as an actor, when you show up and you pour your heart into something and then they don't finish the film, or it just turns out not what you thought it was going to be. And
Or trying to get your footage for your reel?
Yeah. I mean, it felt always like kind of a battle or like a losing situation, to where I couldn't see the return on investment anymore, and so that's where, when I wanted to do a project, I decided to direct my own, and
So are you saying, so you're saying you're not acting anymore?
I'm very selective about it.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm acting in the sense that I think that I still comb through audition notices, but I'm pretty particular about what I'll actually go and
You're not
put my
just
name in for.
You're not just jumping at every audition.
Not
It's gotta be
anymore.
a pretty particular
Look,
project.
I have over 30 credits on my IMDb. I have a really solid reel. I feel like I'm in a really good place to where, and it's not like a place of ego. It's just like I need to be smarter about it for myself,
Well,
you
damn.
know.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only have so much time now that you can do
Right.
stuff. So yeah, I think that's important. At some point, you have to go from, the quality of the work instead of how much work you're doing, right? So
For sure.
And also what gives you joy. Like, that's
Yes.
such a weird thing to talk about, but even when I got, your script and I was like, oh, it's in a diner and it's about a video. Like all of those things really just made me happy. I like that stuff. And
I
so
think
I
that's
was
the
like,
most
That's what-
important
yeah.
part.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like that makes me even more like appreciative of you doing late fees. I didn't know you were that selective.
I
So
am.
that's
Thank you.
amazing.
Big
Yeah,
time for
shit.
that.
You're
She- I don't know if you know,
Shit,
she,
that was, like,
she was
last
in late
minute.
fees. She's in
Oh,
the
I
big
know.
scene,
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything yet. I wanted you to bring it up. I really love that. That late fees is something that really blew me away. Not just because I know people that are in it, but because it was the first thing that I have seen like that. That not just it being local, but that on a smaller end that just blew me away.
Yeah.
The whole idea of it. The people that were in it, and I kind of removed myself, with Keith being my best friend, that I kind of removed myself, and that was the first time that I saw something where I didn't think of Keith as Keith, right?
Yeah.
Because it was so good to me. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how good it was, and I've told Chad
You're gonna
this.
think
I've
I'm
talked to
making you
Chad
say
about
this from. Are you like? Are you
No,
reading it from right here?
no.
Like-
That's
just keep reading
no,
right
that's
there.
why
Let's just read the rest of that.
Yeah, no. That's why I'm saying it, because, people, and again, if you haven't had a chance to see it, go check it out. It's on YouTube. So
Desperate Directors.
yeah, right. So
I'll put a link up.
Yeah. We should definitely put some links up there, because it's
I know
so
how to do
damn
that
good.
now.
Yeah. Learning from your mistakes.
Exactly.
It was really fucking good, and I had, being outside of your guys' industry, had never seen something like that on that level. By the time that I would see something like Normal People, it had already gotten national. So
Well, plus I sent you 50 projects before that. Just completely sucked ass. And you're like,
no,
Which
That's
proves
so-
my point, though, right?
Yes, it does.
so
Yeah.
Yes, it
Hey,
does.
McClay, check this out. Like, no response.
Yeah, like I remember.
And finally, oh, late fees was awesome.
I
I think I
remember-
got a thumbs up from late fees. That was it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and just
He
thinking.
doesn't tell me this shit.
Yeah.
No.
I remember seeing that and just thinking, like, being excited that I wanted more. There's something that's good. You want more.
And that was a response I felt like you got a lot, was people were like, oh, I want to, what happens? Like, what's
Yes.
going next? And that's exactly what you want. But I mean, that is a perfect example, though. I felt like there was stuff in the script that I just thought was really cool and badass. I thought, I didn't know you, but I knew Keith and I knew a couple other people involved, and I thought they
Rivas.
were really amazing, just awesome people. And so those are the kind of projects that I will step on a set for in the local scene. But, I'm trying to figure out what my voice is, honestly, as an actor too. And I like the dark stuff. I do. I like the weird kind of twisted stuff. I don't like things that are super obvious and handed to the audience on a silver platter. I like those films where you watch them and you're like, wait, what? Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And so, I'm working on a really dark short for myself now to star in, where I play twins, and it's
Oh,
going to
that'd be
be really
fun.
hard for my husband to shoot and really hard for me to direct myself. But like, what the hell? Let's just give it a shot, see what happens.
Well, that's the important thing. You're challenging yourself
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
where you're going to get better.
So, so you're in production for that? Is that already written?
I wrote it a while ago and then I got distracted, so I'm gonna revisit, just make sure it's where I want it to be. But I've got badass set locations in mind, and like we've started kind of mapping out what we want to shoot. So yeah, I'm hoping to get it done before it gets really hot again.
Do you write a lot?
I've started to.
Mhm.
I wasn't, because I didn't really think of myself that way, but I'm starting to just trust my own voice and
I realize
kinda,
anyone's a writer. 'Cause
Anyone
I used to
is,
think
yeah.
that too, and then I started writing, and my girlfriend actually wants to start writing too, and she has those same thoughts, and I'm like, everyone's a writer. You just write, and whatever comes out, it doesn't matter, and it's just
Yeah.
like anything, you're gonna get better at it.
yeah.
And because I would write, I'm like, I'm not a writer, and then it's like, it doesn't matter. You just
Yeah.
write.
No, you do. And you, again, you get better the more you do it, and you learn from all those, drafts that you go through as well. But, the other part I was going to say is I feel too that the film community in the past kind of had some pretty good leaders before that would kind of step up, pull people together, pull people into projects, do kind of fun things to support the community. And I feel like that's been missing a lot lately. It just kind of seems like,
I feel like I missed out on the whole cool scene or something. Like,
Well, that's
when was
interesting.
that?
That's really interesting to me, because I, again, not being in the industry, I really see, for the first time in a long time, to me, the art scene in Phoenix right now, to me is better than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So not being in a specific industry and seeing how it's been, so it's interesting to see, the criticisms. I think that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing this show, not just because I'm hanging out with my friends and I just enjoy talking about cool stuff, but just to try and put a microscope on our community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that also includes the criticisms to help make it better.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear those. So
well,
I hope more guests talk about the good and the bad. Right?
Yeah, I think you bring an interesting point, because I think that opportunity-wise, we're in a better place than we've ever been. And I mean, there's people planning cool festivals. There's people doing really kind of awesome things that I haven't seen done in a really long time or ever. And I appreciate that. But I think what I feel, and maybe it's just me, but I don't know, is it's just a little disjointed. Like, there's kind of tribes where people sort of really follow and stick with this and know about this, but they have no idea that this is going on over here in this other corner. And so, my hope is to find a way to be a little bit more cohesive, as a film scene. And I just feel, I don't feel like that's an impossible thing to make happen.
No, it's definitely not impossible. And,
yeah.
And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm hoping that this can be one of those few things where, more people use this as a way to see what else is going on. You know, or even more people out there do put a microscope on this community, so more people, hey, where can we go to be with other people that are creators in this scene,
right,
and not just the acting or the movie making or anything, just creating and the whole art scene and the, especially downtown right now, and everything about the valley right now you could see it's blossoming, and you could see the potential. So I hope that more things like this happen where people, can come on and see more people. Or, I would like for the show to be that. Don't get me wrong. I would love, that was kind of what my thing was with Keith. I said, I would love for this to be a show where people can, watch every episode locally and nationally, whatever, but more locally to say, oh, there's somebody I don't know. Let me contact that person. Or here's some place that I never knew about. Let me go to that place and this event.
Yeah.
The more things that we have like that, the better.
That's where I feel like I've really stepped back, because I used to, when I helped run Filmstock, which is now defunct, we used to have monthly socials, and it was free. And I know there's like social meetups now, but a lot of them charge, and I don't understand that, because like I could see so and so for free at Denny's if I wanted to. Why do I need to pay $10?
The thing with the social things is that they're always handing out prizes and awards and everything.
See, I didn't do that either.
And I'm like, if it was nominated, I'm like, I don't need any awards. What have I been in? I've been in nothing.
I don't get where those come from either. But anyway, I would literally pick a different venue every month, because I also, like you, I was like, oh, there's really cool places popping up that like a lot of folks don't even know about. And so I was like one of the first events at that arcade bar at Cobra when they first opened.
I used to live down the street from there.
Yeah, like Camp Social. Like I would just pick a different place, and I would reach out to the restaurant and say, hey, there's basically going to be 20 to 30 film geeks showing up, just to give you a heads up, because I didn't want to like pay for a party package. I just wanted to let them know. And people would come, and I'd ask 2 to 3 people to just talk. And so they could talk about a project, they could talk if they needed something, they could, it was like whatever. And then the rest of it was just straight up mingling. And you had a beer in your hand, and it was really casual and laid back. It wasn't a formal thing. And I loved it. I loved doing it. And I wished that was still a thing. I just, time-wise, I just couldn't keep it up.
It's hard. But that doesn't mean that you can't every once in a while just throw it, have it. I mean, it doesn't have to happen.
We need more
weekend.
people like you to do that shit.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because, the majority of us, we have a 9-to-5 job. It's really hard when you have that 9 to 5. And I think that's something that I'm going through right now. I'm trying to figure out how to make that 9 to 5 job be just a 9 to 5 job, because usually it's not just 9 to 5, right?
No.
And you have to figure out ways to enjoy life and not just work your life away. So it's important that people out there realize that you can do stuff like that. Maybe it doesn't have to be every weekend, but figure out ways. But it's also important to realize how to manage your time, like you were saying.
Yeah.
because there's other things that sometimes are more important. And
Yeah.
the cool thing though about what you said is the fact that, you know, you did it so they didn't have to pay. And I understand some places that have to pay just because, you know,
What do you mean pay?
So for like an event like that, they have to pay, you know, to
get in the
get
door.
in,
Oh,
get in the door.
oh, yeah.
So and I understand
I don't
sometimes
care about
that's
that. I care
important.
about like all the ones that I'm telling you are so everyone can hand out an award to each other for no reason.
Well, no, I'm getting into that. I'm getting
I'm
into
not even
that.
joking.
Pity
Do you know what
party.
I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah, the most important thing though is like you said, the mingling, right?
Yeah.
The creating new contacts, meeting new people. We've become a society that doesn't happen as much anymore, or at least it's starting to happen a little bit more now, I think. But you know, in the past, 10 years, it kind of went the opposite way, where there's a lot of people that just spend too much time either at their job or in their house doing, stuff where you can really enjoy the human interaction.
Yeah.
So I understand the places that do have to charge sometimes. I get it.
No, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Matthew was talking about that.
yes,
But
exactly.
I wish they would say where the money goes to.
Yes.
And I know that seems, I don't know, that may seem odd, but like, I don't care if it's to cover the cost of the venue. I don't care if they're giving it back to a charity they really like. I don't like, just tell me what my money is going to, because
Yeah,
if it's
not in their pocket.
right,
Yeah.
like it just feels like I don't know what you're doing with this, and like, and two, if I'm paying for something, it better have a quality component to it. Like I said, where it's not like I could just go meet up with my friends for
And I
free
better
at
get
Denny's down the
two fucking
street.
drink coupons too. Like, what the
Something,
fuck?
yeah, give me something.
That's bullshit.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm bashing a lot, but I guess it's
No,
just
no,
you're
because-
fine.
No, that's important. That is no, seriously, that's important. I look at it more as constructive criticism, right? Because you have to hear from your community also, that because otherwise the community is going to fail.
Yeah.
If
Well, I'm
there's-
glad you talked about that stuff. I didn't know any of that. I never thought of you as a bitch, and I'm no, I'm serious.
Thanks.
Like, no, I'm serious. Like, it's just I think it is important to talk about those things and get that out and come on here and represent yourself and let people know how you really are. You know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So I'm,
No, I
I'm glad. I'm
appreciate
really,
it.
really glad that you talked about that. And
Thank you.
You can come on here anytime you want to plug stuff. You ever have a project, you know what I mean, or
Cool.
whatever.
Thank
so
you.
we have a few minutes left, though. I just had one more quick question.
Sure.
I don't know. What is Keep Arizona Beautiful?
Oh, so that's I have a bunch of different hats actually that I wear, and so
I know there's a million of things that we could still talk about.
Yeah.
Definitely we'll have you on again. But
No, I want to plug too. So Keep Arizona Beautiful is a nonprofit organization, and they partner with ADOT, the Department of Transportation, and it's basically you can call and report anytime you see somebody littering, and they don't get an actual ticket. They just get a letter that's like,
you're an asshole.
yeah, kind of, hey jerk, we saw you throw this thing. Here's a trash bag. Use this next
Yeah.
time.
Damn, I'm gonna do that
Um,
like crazy.
well, you know what's funny?
You used to litter like a motherfucker.
Yeah, this guy made me not a litterer, right?
Good.
Because he used to give me so
Good.
much shit.
and I would pick up after him.
Yeah. So real quick, synchronicity, right? You're talking about this, and I just saw that whole thing that's going around about the trash, where people, find a.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it. It's like a hashtag that they got going where they.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
They're picking up they're cleaning the beaches.
yeah,
up
the
Yeah.
and
beaches, all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. That is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that, because we really forget this. How we are. Anybody that doesn't want to admit that we are ruining our environment with
Yeah.
how we do things, you're just being silly.
Yeah.
Now we can talk. At some point, it just becomes semantics. Whether you believe it or not, or I mean, whether how bad it is or what it is. Listen, we're as humans and how we use so many things, we are ruining the beautiful things that are out there. We're growing like a
And you ain't
weed.
picking up any trash or shit. You read the hashtags. You ain't picking up.
No,
nothing.
that's what I'm getting at. He's right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one thing to say it.
But I love
Way to
that-
call him
I
out.
love
Way
that,
to
and I love that
Yes.
it's a tattletailing service. That's what I'm gonna look at.
Yeah,
So I'm
it's
gonna
one
put
thing-
a
It
tattletale
is.
on everybody.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's one
Yeah.
thing to say it, and here's the other thing. It's another thing to just do it because you
Fuck
want to
yeah.
get likes on your Twitter account, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Let's just do it to do it. Like, why?
I'm gonna put it as a keyword so we get more views.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
It has an actual really practical application too during wildfire season, because a lot
Yes.
of people throw cigarettes out and then they don't know how stuff gets started and da da da. So like, yeah, especially during wildfire season, like Prescott, Arizona, you'll get a ton of people calling and reporting cigarette butts. So that's a really good service. But
That's
the other
awesome
one,
that
I
That
want to
is so
plug this
awesome.
one because it's so important to
Yeah.
me. I'm a mentor at New Pathways for Youth. And so if you've ever thought about the idea of mentoring a kid, I love this organization. They've been around forever. They just celebrated 30 years. And they pair you with a kid and you stay with them as long as you can. So it's not like you swap out and get a new kid. Like you try to get them to college or, to whatever their next life path is.
Yeah.
And so I've been with my girl for about 2 years, and she's 12, and
Oh wow.
it's just been it's really cool. It's a really life enriching experience.
Yeah.
So I'm just plugging it, New Pathways for Youth.
No,
Is
that's
check
really
it out.
important.
Is that the webpage or?
It's the name of the organization, but I can't remember if they do npfy.org or if it's the full name. But you
I'll
should
look
be
it up.
able to find it. Yeah.
That's very important. Over the last 10 years or so, I've seen and been part of that in my own way,
Yeah.
and it's some things that we forget. Some people, my life growing up, my parents were great. I had the storybook, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you forget that so many people out there don't have that. And it's kind of funny because one of the things that really made me look at that in a even more of a microscope is I was listening to this story about a guy who it's actually on Netflix. It was that show like not making a murderer, but they're talking to all these people who are on death row.
Mm-hmm.
And
That show's awesome.
Yeah, and it talks about their stories.
Mhm.
And then this one guy was basically like a 15-year-old kid.
That was the saddest story.
Yeah,
I've ever
and
seen in my life.
he had ended up going into jail, and through jail he kept getting these things added on, and they put him in solitary confinement, and he the number one thing that humans need, basically just as much as oxygen, is human interaction.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can do is take that away from somebody. And this guy, the guards basically told him, dropped these ideas on him that, hey, if you get on death row, you will have human interaction. And they put somebody in a cell with him that they didn't like, and within 14 seconds the other guy was dead because just the guy knew he could be. And he made a comment in this show, and I'm setting it up because of this comment that was so heartbreaking to me. And a cousin that he had never met started writing him, and he had started having this relationship with this cousin. And he made a comment towards the end when he was talking about how much this cousin had been important to him. He said, I had never had anybody in my life tell me that they loved me. Right?
Yeah.
He had never had a father or a mother around because his father and mother were, for whatever reason they weren't around. And it's so important to have somebody, especially at that young age, to say, hey, people care about you.
Yeah.
And there's so many kids out there, or there's a lot of kids out there that just don't have that. So
Yeah.
I applaud you for that,
Thank you.
and everybody out there, definitely check that out. So
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. It changes their lives. It changes yours. It's really an amazing thing. So
Yeah. Very cool.
I really appreciate you coming on. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
yeah, I had a lot of fun. So do you have anything, Chad, that you want to add?
No,
Or any
no,
other questions you
that
want
was
to ask?
great.
Or
It was nice.
anything else?
It was nice.
No, I'm good, man.
All right, yeah. So anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to plug anything, you're welcome. So I'll wrap the podcast here. This is Bogcast episode 6. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yay. Thanks.
And it wasn't as hot as I thought it would be in here. Yeah.
My hair's sweating, but other than that.
Bang!